This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast.
Oh, Fact Check This podcast, episode 54. And I said that I was going to talk about the COVID vaccine passport today, but I don't think I'm going to do that. There was actually an article from The Hill and a few other places that said good old Jen Psaki, or whatever her name is, said that the Biden administration does not have any interest in pursuing a COVID vaccine passport at this time. I think they noticed the pushback that it's getting in Israel and other places, as well as the severe backlash that just the mention of it was getting all across social media. For the people who were in support of it, there was a considerably larger group that even, and I mean, it went across the spectrum, like Democrats and Republicans, everybody, pretty adamantly in opposition to that. So I think it kind of died in the idea phases, at least for the time being. We'll see. They may try to revisit that, bring it back around, and good old Jen, she likes to circle back, so I'm sure we'll be coming back around to that at some point in the future. But in the meantime, wanted to talk about this giant, impressive, the newest omnibus spending bill that they're currently working on, Joe Biden's infrastructure plan. And first we got to talk about the funding for this infrastructure plan, because typically for something this big, it would require the filibuster, the 60 votes to get around the filibuster. And there's an article here from CBS News that the Senate parliamentarian, the evil Senate parliamentarian that said that they couldn't put $15 an hour minimum wage in the last spending bill, has said that they can use a reconciliation. So the way the budget reconciliation works is it can only be budget related matters, and there's some other stipulations for when this is able to be used, but basically it has to be for budgeting purposes, and it has to go through like all kinds of votes, and it is they call it a vote-a-rama. Like, it has to be voted on a whole bunch, and they also can do roll calls and require readings of the bills, and it's what the last the 1.9 trillion stimulus package went through in order to get it passed. So the Senate parliamentarian has said that it is allowable for them to use this reconciliation measure, or let me get it completely clear. It's Section 304 of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974, which allows for a reconciliation process. So they're allowed to use this reconciliation process strictly for budgetary things. So they can't use this for anything else other than approving more government spending, basically. And that's I'll link to all of these articles, but like, that's very, very clearly laid out in a different article, is that there are things that they cannot do with this reconciliation legislation. So it allows them to get around the filibuster strictly for budgetary items, but it also still kind of handcuffs them as far as the extent to which they can use this. And it also requires a whole lot. It's they call it, in the article, they refer to it as a grueling process. It includes 2 voting marathons in the Senate during which any senator can force a roll call vote on or vote on an amendment. They can call for the entire thing to be read. Like, there's a whole bunch that goes into all of this. So it's not just as easy as, okay, we just say we're going to use this and now we ram it through. Like, they still have a process that they have to go through, which is the entire purpose of the way our government was structured and aligned and everything anyway. Like, it's not they are not supposed to do things. The whole reason all of this exists the way it does is because government was not intended to do anything. They were supposed to just be there to take care of the most basic functions, not to run our entire lives. I mean, that was the entire purpose of the American Revolution, was because they didn't want government doing that. So, you know, here we are, circling back a couple hundred years later. So they're looking at using this reconciliation to try to ram it through, or, you know, as much as they can, and bypass the filibuster. They're still going to face opposition. Not all of this stuff is particularly popular with all of the Senate, in particular. Moderates like Joe Manchin, who I talked about yesterday, because a large portion of this includes a 28% corporate tax hike and a whole bunch of other tax increases that are supposedly going to fund this, but so they're supposedly going to fund this, but like, this is something I think I talked about a couple weeks ago, was even with all of these proposed tax hikes and everything, the increase in revenue that the U.S. government would get does not actually make up enough of a difference to fund this in any significant way. So it's still all more deficit spending. So they're like, the tax increases aren't going to fix any of the problems that they've created. That basically and another thing that I've talked about regularly is that the tax increases don't actually affect the wealthy or the people that it's supposed to. It all ends up falling down to the people who make the absolute least. Like, every tax increase only hurts the poorest of the poor. It erodes the middle class. It just totally destroys the lowest class, and it doesn't do a single thing to the richest in the country. So that's where we get into a CNN article that is fact-checking the criticisms of Biden's infrastructure plan. And I love these fucking fact-checkers, because they are all so just moronic in the way that they approach everything. So, like, the first point that they make is that all of these tax increases, the corporate tax increases and everything else that aren't going to actually serve the purpose of funding any of this shit, will also have the negative impact of creating job losses. It'll shrink domestic investment, and it'll slow down wage growth. Like I said, it's going to crush the middle and lower classes. And this comes from a report by the Tax Foundation. And like, this is actual researched report that's done. And CNN's refutation of that report. So the tax increase alone would eliminate about 159,000 jobs and reduce wages by just less than 1%. On top of the fact that they've already destroyed jobs and wages over the last year with all of the COVID lockdown bullshit, all of these tax increases are going to only expound that problem. So CNN's entire refuting of a report from the Tax Foundation was that but some people don't think that's the case. No research, no studies, no anything. There's nothing to back that. It's just someone else's opinion is that that's not actually what's going to happen. if you're okay, so I took an English comp class in college. Everybody did. Well, one of the big things in our comp 2 class was you had to write opinion pieces, and you take an argument. You would take a topic, a specific topic, and you would pick a side of that topic, whether you were for or against, whatever, and then you would defend that side. But at the same time, you also had to defend the other side and then refute why the defense of that side was incorrect and that your side was correct. And if the only thing you had was to refute the other side's claim was, yeah, I just don't think that's right, you would absolutely fucking fail. Like, but this is what passes for journalism, is they just say, yeah, we have, but other sources don't think that that's going to be the case. Some other issues that they have with it is that it's not actually infrastructure. That it's not going to this multi-trillion-dollar, huge relief package going towards infrastructure is not actually going to go towards infrastructure. It says only 7% of the bill's spending is for what Americans traditionally think of as infrastructure. And what they're using to define infrastructure as is a lot of it's going to be a lot of like Green New Deal type expansions and other types of, like, they're not using this to fix the roads that are in disrepair and that all the statists are so concerned about, and the whole reason we have to have taxes is so we can have roads. But they're not going to use this stuff to put significant investment into any of that sort of stuff. It's all going towards a bunch of other like pet projects and bullshit, which, I mean, everybody saw the last omnibus spending bill. Like, that's what they do. They don't actually spend the money that this stuff is set aside for on the things that it's actually supposed to be going towards, right? So like, yeah, it's going to be less than 10% of the money that's invested into this infrastructure plan is actually going to go to infrastructure. And it'll be interesting. I hope we get to have a full review of this one like we did with the omnibus spending plan and go through it and be like, oh, so we're also supporting infrastructure with military contracts in the Middle East. We're supporting infrastructure in Pakistan, like, because I guarantee you there is going to be all kinds of foreign aid that's built into this infrastructure plan. Like, it's going to be insane. 112 billion to public schools, 111 billion for water, 100 billion for power. So while they've spent the last couple months going after fracking and going after the oil lines, the main and the Democrats have been wholeheartedly in support of going after coal for decades now. They're going to put money towards the power grid, which means they're going to try to go for more solar and wind farms that have been proven to be highly ineffective. I mean, I could do multiple hours of looking at why that stuff just never seems to actually work the way it's supposed to. But so yeah, I mean, this is going to be, they're going to have to go through the whole vote-a-rama process. They're going to have to battle with the Joe Manchin and the other moderate Democrats who are not going to be in complete support of this because of the tax hikes and everything else that's going to be included with it. They're going to have an uphill battle as far as getting it through everything. And then even after that, it's not even going to go towards what they say it's going to go towards. like Biden's infrastructure plan is a complete joke, but here we are. I mean, what about the Biden administration has not been a joke at this point? Oh gosh, if you haven't been keeping up with, speaking of the Biden jokes, if you haven't been keeping up with the Hunter Biden interviews and the laptop stuff and smoking Parmesan cheese, and he doesn't remember if it was his laptop or not when it was very clearly. Oh man, there are multiple articles that talk about Hunter Biden continues to debase himself and embarrass his father. Like, I don't know who had the idea to put this dude on camera, but they were fucking genius. It's great, absolutely great. But I think that'll be about it for me today. Got some other stuff I got to do, and I'm kind of tired. This night shift stuff is wearing me out. So anyway, hope everybody has a good day. Hope you have a good rest of your week. I will be back on Monday, most likely. I don't think I'm going to have anything else to talk about this week unless something just really crazy comes up, and then we'll see how it goes. But hope you have a good one, and yeah, I think that's it. Later.